My home D&D game just recently retconned our campaign because of many reasons. It basically crashed and burned, but we'll get into that in another video. There was a discussion on how to proceed with the campaign after we Charlie Kirked it. Can I say that joke? I think that might be too edgy. Which is, what system the DM really wanted to use. He wanted to use Cairn RPG, and I've played Cairn in a couple of one-shots and campaigns, and I understand how the feel that system is. Cairn is an OSR RPG. Old school Renaissance. OSRs usually have classless characters, simplified rules, and an emphasis for player choice. But character mortality is not guaranteed. Cairn's system focuses a lot on dungeon delving and an inventory system where you would strategically plan out what items and things you have to carry for the dungeon or adventure. It's giving gritty setting and a cloudy with a chance of losing an arm. Now with that in mind, the DM wanted to run a pulp fantasy game where the progression is slow but will be felt later in the campaign, and that we aren't heroes yet. Isn't that just D&D? He didn't want to run D&D and wanted to try a different system. I said okay, valid. But I didn't think Cairn would be a good system to showcase that progression. So I suggested Easy D6, which has a more actiony feel where the characters aren't as fragile as that in Cairn, but aren't exactly level 20 gift fighters. We agreed on this and continued to use Easy D6 for the rest of the campaign. Now I know what you're wondering. You can still use Cairn to have that feel of progression and pulp action. Just homebrew it, bro. Why argue with the DM? Now here's where my hypothesis comes into play. I believe that you can run whatever system you want and try to change it into the atmosphere and feel of the system to fit your campaign. However, there's a reason a majority of TTRPGs have a central theme about them. Look at games like Call of Cthulhu. Its genre is cosmic horror. And the feel of the game is that you are helpless humans trying to either solve or escape the horrors that lie in the world. Or games like Morkbird or Merkbirdie, where you play as filth and scum of the earth trying to get by in a world that is slowly fading away, and the apocalypse is inevitable. You see how different these games are? If I was to play these systems, I would have different expectations as to how the game would be played. The theme of the world reflects on how the game will be played. In Call of Cthulhu, you have sanity checks and bouts of madness that would reflect on seeing the horrors of a cosmic entity. In Cairn, it showcases stat losses, where combat is gritty and adventuring is grueling, as the longer you fight and get hit, the weaker you become. After losing HP, you begin to lose your strength. If you lose all your strength, game over. Now there would be the argument that you can basically have any atmosphere in any system. Take D&D for example. You can have a horror-esque campaign in Curse of Strahd where creepy crawlers and spooky ghost encounters will be witnessed. A hex-crawling survival campaign in Tomb of Annihilation, where you must keep track of your gear and rations as to not waste away in the thick jungles. A complex political campaign in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, where multiple factions and political players make moves in the city, and you as players must decide who to side with and whose toes shall you step on. We can take this to an even more extreme example, like Dimension 20's Crown of Candy, where the setting is literally Wreck-It Ralph's Candyland. And their other campaign, The Unsleeping City, where the players are literally in New York City downtown, I'm walking here type shit. Did I really write this? Also similar to their Fantasy High campaign, where the players are just fantasy creatures in the modern setting. And these campaigns are played using D&D. This doesn't mean that the setting of the world defines the theme of the campaign. Notice how all the campaigns I mentioned are ran in D&D. There is a central idea of epic heroic adventure in them. Some light spoilers ahead. In Curse of Strahd, the players are expected to bring down this horrific villain terrorizing the town of Barovia. In Tomb of Annihilation, the players must trek and find the cause of the wasting curse on the land and cleanse the land of its blight. And I haven't read Dragon Heist. And a similar thing happens to Dimension 20's campaigns. Crown of Candy is practically Waterdeep Game of Thrones, Unsleeping City is Wolf Among Us, and Fantasy High is Sky High! It takes quite a bit of skill and experience to implement new mechanics to a system that you want to change in order to fit a setting or atmosphere. You would have to not only know the rules of the system, but understand them enough that you would be confident to break them when a narrative moment appears in the story, or a cool moment in combat happens. Sometimes a player wants to do something really cool, like sacrificing themselves for the betterment of another character, and then having to come up with either the rules or mechanic for just that moment. Although this skill isn't really required, I think it helps when it comes to balancing it. Take for instance this Frostpunk mechanic that I saw on Reddit that I thought was cool. Get it? And tried implementing it into my campaign. I lost the data for that campaign and intend to revitalize it later on, but the mechanics for the Frostpunk campaign bases itself on the mechanics of Frostpunk. the game. It has a difficulty class depending on how cold the place is and what other factors are in the environment, like elevation and weather. You would develop frost exhaustion depending on how many times you fail it. I recommend checking out that video, but anyways, basically, there are rules for extreme cold and how not to die from it. There are downsides to implementing new rules to the table though, and that would be remembering them. Not only do you have to remember them, but the players might need to remember them as well. You would have to explain it to them and not confuse them in the process. So I suggest putting these rules in writing so that neither parties forget or get kerfuffled. So, should we use D&D for any setting or story you want to tell? If you want to, it's possible. But I think there are options out there that can help tell the narrative in a better way. Overall, it doesn't really matter. 99.99% of people out there aren't big TTRPG shows, so you don't have to try to appeal to a massive audience. Your audience is your players. What matters is that you're comfortable with running either option, whether you want to change the rules of an existing system or running a whole new system in itself. You may also have to consider if the players want to play another system as well. Some may be opposed to anything except D&D, you know, people are very loyal to D&D. That's gonna be all, folks. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. The devil has delivered and our deal is done. See you in the next video.